The Three Silent Rules of Jeff Bezos. How a Wall Street Quitter Built an Empire. Part 1. New York City, 1994. It was a humid July on Wall Street. In a high-rise office at D.E. Shaw, a prestigious hedge fund, sat a 30-year-old senior vice president. His name was Jeff Bezos. Life was good. Actually, life was perfect. He had a six-figure salary, a brilliant career trajectory, and the kind of job security most Americans only dream of. He was wearing the golden handcuffs, but Jeff couldn't focus on his spreadsheet. He was staring at a statistic that would haunt him for days. He had read that internet usage was growing at a rate of 2,300% per year. Let that number sink in. 2,300%. In the history of business, nothing grows that fast. Jeff knew he was standing on the edge of a tsunami. He saw a future where people bought things through computer screens. But he had a problem. To chase this ghost, he would have to throw away his prestigious career. He went to his boss, David Shaw, and pitched the idea, an online bookstore. They went for a walk in Central Park. They walked for 2 hours. Finally, his boss stopped, looked him in the eye, and said, "Jeff, this sounds like a really great idea, but it sounds like a great idea for someone who doesn't already have a good job." It was a logical argument. It was safe. It was smart. But Jeff Bezos didn't operate on logic alone. He operated on a silent rule that would become the foundation of his billions. Rule number 1. The Regret Minimization Framework. Most people make decisions based on risk versus reward. If I do this, will I lose money? Bezos flipped the script. He projected himself forward in time. He imagined himself as an 80-year-old man looking back on his life. He asked himself, when I am 80, will I regret leaving this Wall Street bonus? No. Will I regret trying this internet thing and failing? No. But will I regret never trying at all, knowing that the internet was going to be a massive thing? Yes. That would haunt me. That was it. The decision was made, not by the 30-year-old Jeff, but by the 80-year-old Jeff. He quit his job. He and his wife, Mackenzie, packed up their lives. They flew to Texas, picked up a car, and drove all the way to Seattle. While Mackenzie drove, Jeff sat in the passenger seat, tapping away on a laptop, writing the business plan for a company he initially wanted to call Cadabra, as in magic. Ideally, it would be the Earth's biggest river, Amazon. They rented a house in Bellevue with a garage, and this is where the glamour ends. They had so little capital that they couldn't afford proper desks. Jeff went to Home Depot, saw that solid wood doors were cheaper than desks, bought a few doors and 4x4 posts, and hammered them together. The door desk was born. Fun fact. Even today, top performers at Amazon are awarded a miniature door desk to remind them of these scrappy roots. In those early days, they installed a bell on the computer. Every time a customer bought a book, the bell would ring. Ding! Everyone in the office would cheer. Who is it? Do we know him? Weeks later, the bell was ringing so constantly, ding, 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 that it was driving everyone insane. Jeff finally reached over and disconnected it. Amazon was exploding, but with speed comes the crash. The dot-com bubble burst. Wall Street turned on him. The same analysts who praised him now called the company Amazon.bomb. They predicted Barnes & Noble would crush this little internet startup like a bug. Amazon's stock price plummeted from $107 to $6. Imagine that. Imagine watching 90% of your wealth evaporate. Most CEOs would panic. They would lay off staff, raise prices, and try to squeeze out a profit to please the shareholders. Bezos did the opposite. He smiled, and he doubled down on his second silent rule. Rule number 2. Willingness to be misunderstood. There is a disease in corporate America called quarterly thinking. CEOs are terrified of having a bad 3 months because they want their stock price to stay high. Bezos didn't care about the next 3 months. He cared about the next 10 years. In his 1997 letter to shareholders, he famously wrote, "It's all about the long term." He told investors, "I am going to take all the money we make, and instead of giving it to you as profit, I'm going to spend it. I'm going to build warehouses, buy servers, and lower prices for customers." Wall Street hated it. They called him a charity, not a business. Why is he lowering prices when he is barely making any money? And then he did the craziest thing of all. He launched Amazon Prime. Think back to 2005. The idea was insanity. You pay $79 a year and you get free 2-day shipping? The math didn't work. Shipping fast costs a fortune. Financial experts screamed, "He's going to bleed the company dry. Every Prime order is a loss." Bezos knew the math didn't work today, but he knew human psychology. He told his team, "We are not building a service. We are building a moat." He knew that if a customer paid $79 up front, they would want to get their money's worth. They would stop shopping at Walmart. They would stop checking Google. They would come to Amazon for everything, toothpaste, batteries, TVs, just to get that free shipping. He was willing to look stupid for a long time. He was willing to be misunderstood by the smartest investors in the room. And he was right. Today, Prime members spend 4 times more than non-members. That stupid decision destroyed the competition. While other companies were trying to make a quick buck, Bezos was building an ecosystem that you cannot escape. But as Amazon transformed from a bookstore into the everything store, a new danger emerged. It wasn't competitors. It wasn't the stock market. It was a danger from within. Success makes you fat. Success makes you lazy. Bezos looked at companies like Microsoft and IBM. He saw them slowing down. They were becoming bureaucratic. They were having meetings about meetings. Bezos was terrified of this. He calls it Day 2. Day 2 is stasis, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciatingly painful decline, followed by death. And that is why it is always Day 1. To fight Day 2, Bezos implemented his third silent rule, a rule so strict, so bizarre, that it completely changed how modern business is done. It involves banning PowerPoint presentations. It involves sitting in a room in total silence for 30 minutes before a meeting starts. And it involves a mysterious empty chair that he used to bring into board meetings. Why the empty chair? Who was supposed to sit there? And how did this third rule lead to the invention of AWS, cloud computing, which actually makes more money than the entire Amazon store?
The Cult of Day 1, Part 2. Seattle, Washington, the mid-2000s. The boardroom is full. VPs, directors, and managers are shuffling papers, checking their BlackBerries, waiting for the meeting to start. Jeff Bezos walks in. But he does something strange. He pulls an empty chair away from the table and places it prominently at the front of the room. He points to it and says, "That chair is for the most important person in this room." The executives look at the empty chair. Is a new investor coming? Is it a regulator? That, Bezos says, is the customer. This brings us to the core of the third silent rule, the philosophy that separates Amazon from almost every other company in history. Rule number 3, obsessive customer focus and the death of corporate fluff. In most American companies, meetings are about internal politics. How do we beat the competitor? How do we cut costs? How do I get my department a bigger budget? Bezos realized that as companies get bigger, they stop looking at the customer and start looking at each other. They play Game of Thrones in the office. This is the beginning of the end. This is day 2. To keep Amazon in day 1, startup mode, Bezos declared war on the tool that corporate America loves the most, PowerPoint. One day, Bezos sent an email that sent shockwaves through the company. No more PowerPoint presentations from now on. Employees were stunned. How do you pitch an idea without bullet points? How do you show graphs without slides? Bezos explained his logic. Bullet points hide sloppy thinking. When you use a bullet point, you can write, increase efficiency, optimize synergy. It sounds good, but it means nothing. It's fluff. Instead, Bezos implemented the 6-page memo rule. If you want to propose a new idea at Amazon, whether it's a new button on the website or a billion-dollar movie studio, you must write a 6-page narrative essay. You have to write full sentences with verbs and nouns, explaining exactly what will happen, why it matters, and how it helps the customer in the empty chair. And here's the kicker. When a meeting starts at Amazon, there is no talking. For the first 30 minutes, there is total silence. Everyone sits and reads the 6-page memo, like a study hall. Why? Because Bezos knows that if someone presents a slide deck, the charismatic extrovert usually wins the room. But if everyone reads a document silently, the best idea wins. This brutal intellectual honesty is what saved Amazon from becoming just another retailer. It forced them to think deeply, and that deep thinking led to an accidental discovery that would change the internet forever. The trillion-dollar accident, AWS. In the early 2000s, Amazon was a mess internally. Their computer systems were tangled spaghetti. Every time they wanted to launch a new feature, it took months to code the back end. The engineering team came to Jeff and said, "We need to rebuild our infrastructure." Bezos agreed, but he added a twist, applying rule number 3 again. He said, "Don't just build it for us. Build it so it's so good we could rent it out to a college kid in his dorm room." His team was confused. "Jeff, we sell books. Why do we want to rent out computer servers?" Wall Street was even more confused. When Amazon launched Amazon Web Services, headlines mocked them again. The bookseller wants to be a tech company? But Bezos saw what others didn't. He saw that the world was moving to the cloud. He knew that startups didn't want to buy expensive servers. They just wanted to rent them. Because Amazon had the day one mentality, the willingness to experiment, and the refusal to be boxed in by their past, they built AWS. Today, AWS is not just a side project. If AWS shuts down tomorrow, Netflix goes dark. Disney Plus stops working. The CIA loses data. Half the internet would simply vanish. AWS generates more profit from Amazon than the entire retail store combined. It turned Jeff Bezos from a billionaire into the richest man in modern history. The decision engine. Type 1 versus Type 2. As the empire grew, Bezos had to solve one final problem. How do you make decisions fast when you have 1.5 million employees? Bureaucracy usually kills speed. Bezos introduced a mental model that he shared in his annual letters. He categorized all decisions into 2 types. Type 1 decisions. These are one-way doors. If you walk through, you can't come back. Example, buying Whole Foods for $13 billion. Strategy, take your time, be careful, analyze data. Type 2 decisions. These are two-way doors. If you walk through and it's a mistake, you can just turn around and come back. Example, changing the color of the buy button, launching a new feature. Bezos noticed that big companies die because they treat Type 2 decisions like Type 1 decisions. They hold 20 meetings just to change a font size. They're terrified of making a mistake. Bezos told his managers, if you are 70% sure, do it. If you wait until you are 90% sure, you are too late. This permission to fail
and fail fast is why Amazon ate the world. They launched the Fire Phone. It was a disaster. It failed miserably. Did Bezos fire the team? No. He said, "Good try. What did we learn?" That same team took the technology from the failed phone and built Alexa, Echo. If Bezos had punished the failure, Alexa would never exist.
The 3 silent rules of Jeff Bezos, the price of empire, and your takeaway. Part 3, the conclusion. Jeff Bezos achieved what economists once deemed impossible. He created a company that operates like a giant, yet moves with the speed and ferocity of a startup. He did this by adhering to his 3 silent rules. In summary, they are the Regret Minimization Framework, willingness to be misunderstood, and it is always day one. Fighting complacency by constantly viewing the company through the eyes of the customer, the empty chair. Today, Bezos is retired from the CEO role, dedicating his time to Blue Origin and philanthropy. But the narrative is incomplete without addressing the cost of that ruthless efficiency. The price of day one, the necessary darkness. When you are obsessed with the customer, the empty chair, and you promise them the world in 2 days, every process must be optimized to the extreme. This is the moral tension inherent in the Amazon story. The day one mentality is not always comfortable. For the millions of employees in Amazon's vast network, day one means relentless pressure. For Main Street, Amazon's obsessive focus on lowering prices, rule number 2, meant many smaller businesses that couldn't compete on cost or speed simply closed their doors. For the warehouse worker, the speed and technology required to meet the 2-day delivery promise often translates into high-stress metrics and intense monitoring. Bezos has argued that this pressure is a necessary cost of innovation, that this intensity is what drives the customer experience. But the lesson for the audience is this: you cannot replicate the success without replicating the intensity. The rules are a double-edged sword. His legacy is not just the wealth, it's the definitive proof that you can change human behavior globally, provided you are willing to be patient with the strategy and impatient with the execution. So for the audience of 150,000 striving Americans, how do you apply the Bezos blueprint to your life without starting a hostile work environment? You take the psychological frameworks and apply them selectively.